Welcome to The Currency of Grief, the podcast where we confront two of society's most taboo topics, death and money. My name is Justin Weidenfeld, and I'm here to serve as your grief financial officer, guiding you through the complex and emotional journey of what happens when money and mortality collide. Whether you're navigating the aftermath of losing a loved one, looking for practical advice on handling pre- and post-death planning, or simply just wanting to start those hard conversations about legacy while you still can, this space is for you. Together, we'll hear real-life stories from real-life people who have navigated the intersection of grief and money and come out the other side. Our guests will share their stories, practical insights, valuable advice, and moments of clarity so that none of you have to navigate this alone. I'm grateful you've decided to join us on this journey. Now let's dive in. Rebecca Feinglos' loss has shaped a global movement advocating for honest, practical grief for grievers in the workplace and beyond. Rebecca is a certified grief support specialist, the founder of Grieve Leave, and the founder and host of the Griefed Up podcast. She has lived the kind of layered losses that reshape a life and the financial landscape that comes with all of that complication. After losing her parents and navigating divorce, she embarked on a year-long grief sabbatical that transformed how she and thousands of others make space for loss. In this episode, Rebecca opens up about the tender intersections of grief, money, and the systems we inherit. Rebecca, welcome to the podcast. So without further ado, let's meet our guest for today's podcast. I am humbled and honored to welcome Rebecca Feinglos into the virtual studio today. Thanks so much for joining us.
Yay! I'm so excited to be here, Justin. Thank you for having me.
I'm so excited to have you, especially after a really incredible Endwell talk. I know that's been a highlight of probably your year. And
oh my God, like all my life. It was amazing. It's weird to prep for months thinking about and memorizing, speaking about the worst day of your life and what you learned from it. It is beyond a joy to have done it. And I feel much less stressed out than I did before the talk.
Yeah. For those who don't know, tell us a little bit about what Endwell is.
Yeah. I was invited to give a talk this year for an organization called Endwell that is a nonprofit that does a lot of educational work about how we talk about the end of life, whether that is in the media, how shows and TV and movies talk about end of life in a way that sets us up for to really just be disappointed by how end of life things actually play out. Endwell also does a lot of work with our healthcare systems and is getting into the policy realm of how we can just make our systems treat end of life in a way that is more realistic. I was, again, very lucky to be invited this year to speak about my experience as someone previously in the government and policy world of what it was like to go through the sudden death of my father, and what I learned about how grief intersects with our workplaces in ways that we like to pretend that it definitely doesn't. And it just kind of comes to a head. And I think that ends up interplaying really well into our conversation about money, Justin, because, man, if we are talking about grief and bereavement leave and taking time off work for so many people across our country, these are devastating financial impacts that a death can have if your workplace does not compensate you, does not give you a quote unquote benefit, which to me is just basic humanity to help financially buffer you when you have to take time off when a loved one dies, So go watch the talk. It's awesome.
Definitely. I could probably link it to the show notes here. So I
don't even know. I have, I wonder if I'm allowed to share this link. I'll send it to you. I have a link of the full 2025 day. So I'll be posting just my talk soon on my Instagram.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll link that to the show notes. Definitely.
Cool.
Well, I appreciate, you coming on, and it sounds like we have a lot of, overlap and similarities with your work with Grieve Leave and everything that you talked about from a public policy standpoint. But before we dive into that, we don't hold back here. We dive in pretty quick into the messy stuff. So tell us a little bit about your grief story.
Oh my God, there's so much. My mom, Susan, died when I was a kid. She was diagnosed with brain cancer when I was 5, which sucked. And then she lived for 8 years with the disease and its impacts, and then died when I was 13. So that's like enough grief, you would think. And then my dad died very suddenly, which is what we were just talking about in this talk, on day 1 of COVID lockdown. So, fast forward a couple of decades, and I had experienced this long, painful, traumatic loss of my mom, and then very suddenly experienced the death of my father, totally out of the blue while I was at work.
Yeah.
And then I chose to get divorced a year after my dad died, which was a great choice, but also comes with its own grief and financial impacts. And yeah, I feel like that's like a lifetime of a grief story all condensed into the first 31 years of my life, which is crazy to think about.
Crazy. It's too much, too fast.
That's wild. That's wild. But like going through the death of a parent when you're young sucks. And it sucks no matter what. But there's also like never a good time to lose a parent at all. And so in many ways, I'm like, okay, I have front loaded my grief, and hopefully it just will get better from here.
Or you'll just be working in it and talking about it every day for the rest of the
day. It's so funny. I'm like, oh, right. I spend all day, every day thinking about my grief, but I truly feel like the happiest and most centered I've ever felt, ever. So there's something there, right? I'm not like running from it anymore.
Yeah. There is.
Yeah.
So I want you to tell our audience about the day that your dad passed away, that your dad died, because I think it really frames the work that you do and what you were doing before and now how it's transitioned to what you're doing now.
Yeah, sure. So I had spent my career in government and policy. At the time of my dad's death, I was a senior policy advisor for the North Carolina Department of Health and Human Services. I led all of our state's early childhood policy. Before then, I worked for the mayor of Chicago. I had been in the education space for many years. And I loved my work. And in retrospect, so much of that hustle of my career and like trying to achieve and help a lot of people while I was still so young probably came from a sense of emptiness, having lost my mom so young and like trying to outrun those feelings. But hindsight is 2020. Mm-hmm. The day my dad died, I had been called into work. It was a Saturday. I had been called into work basically to help shut down schools across North Carolina. And it was like the reveal, March 14th, 2020, that this pandemic thing is real and we are shutting down our infrastructure, basically. And it was my job to help us figure out how the hell we were going to do that and how we were going to talk about it. On my way into the office on that Saturday morning, I called my dad to be like, listen to what I'm going to go do. Isn't this wild? And he was like, wow, that's incredible. I love you. I'm so proud of you. And then, my dad was my best friend, so I called him all the time. And then 2 hours later, I got a phone call that he had died. Totally out of the blue. It turned out it was blood clots that question I get a lot is, did he actually die of COVID? And could the blood clots have been a result of COVID? It's possible. Maybe he had COVID before we really knew that COVID was a thing. But ostensibly he died of blood clots totally out of the blue. And that changed so much in the course of my life. And eventually I ended up a year and a half later leaving my work in government to really spend time thinking about what grief and loss is. And I was feeling so much of it, of course. And I ended up founding my own company called Grieve Leave. And now, as we were talking about before, I spend all day, every day thinking about grief and loss. and thinking about how I can support other young people who experience loss of all kinds, death or non-death, and how we can change the conversation nationally, globally, around how we can better support people through their grief.
I love how you've transformed your grief story into helping people who have gone through something very similar to what you went through. Nothing's the exact same, but having found out that you lost your dad while at work and then navigating everything post-loss, planning a funeral, financial stuff, the emotional burden, stress, going back to work. I know you channel that into Grieve Leave.
Thank you. I wouldn't say I transform it because I think that pain is all right there, right? It's like I carry it at the same time, and I don't, like, my grief's not gone. My grief's not like somehow better than other people's because I've made a company, right? Like, my grief still fucking sucks. Can I curse on your podcast? I'm probably going to anyway. Okay, great. Thank you. Sorry. Like, your grief sucks whether or not you make something beautiful out of it. Like, it's still shitty that my dad died suddenly. It's still shitty that my mom's dead. But I love the work that I do. And I'm a very impact service motivated person. Mm-hmm. So building Grieve Leave has been the honor of a lifetime. And I love this work.
How do you feel when people are like, and I don't know if you get this or not, but when people are like, well, that's so amazing. Like, you lost both your parents and you made a company out of it. Like, do you get that? And do people,
all the time.
Yeah.
Well, even in the way that you were just talking about it. I mean, that's why I highlighted it. Like, I don't believe I transformed anything. I did not, like, I am not better than anybody else. If anything, I am in the position that I am in to do the work that I do because of financial privilege to be able to do so. And because of the educational privilege that I've had, that I could build something like this. Yeah. And just because I've had the luxury of financial resources to start this up, the network, the people, the education, like, that doesn't mean I'm better than anybody. And so many people feel like they have to create something beautiful out of their grief. Like, your grief can just suck. It's okay. You don't have to be productive with it. It's all right. Just feel it.
And if you do harness it and use it, in this capacity, that's amazing. It still sucks.
It's wonderful. It still sucks. Right. I'm still grieving. It's still like, I'm not looking forward to lighting the Hanukkah candles without my dad. That sucks. I will never not think about him. I'm using our family menorah that I'm so glad I have. But it sucks. He's not here.
You don't want to inherit your family menorah yet.
I did not want it. And looky here, I have all of my family stuff, like, in the closet over there. Like, and I don't want to be in the position that I'm in, but if I'm in this position, I'm going to do good things with it.
Yeah. So 3 different points of grief in your life. You have your mom's passing, you have your dad's death, and you have your divorce.
Well, that's just the highlights, Justin. There's so much more grief. All my grandparents are dead too. And anyway, go on.
Okay. So I'm going to say it in a present tense. How do you process? What feels right for you as you're navigating this immense amount of emotional turmoil, either immediately right after and years into the future?
I feel like my life is so much easier now because I'm not pretending that my grief doesn't exist. Like, I didn't recognize that I had all this grief for my mom because I was so busy working and so busy being a great student and achieving and doing all of the things. And it's like, now just talking about grief makes me feel better. It's not something that I'm hiding. I'm such a yapper and such an external processor and such an extrovert that for me, I have to grieve out loud to feel stable. I have to talk about how much I miss my dad. I talk about him all the damn time because it still does not compute that he's gone. I talk about my mom a little bit less because it computes that she's gone. She was always kind of gone in my single parent upbringing.
Yeah.
But for me, I grieve through the work that I do. I grieve through, I love looking at old pictures. I'm always looking at old photos or trying to like find a new photo that I haven't seen before. Like I'll randomly scroll through on Google Photos and see what pops up for pictures of my dad or my mom. I cook. I eat things that remind me of them. I listen to music that reminds me of them. I love telling stories about them. I feel like yapping is the biggest way that I grieve. Am I wearing anything of my grandmother's or my mom's right now? No. Usually I'm wearing some jewelry of theirs or a scarf of theirs. My mom and grandma would have both approved of this dress for sure. Though it was neither of theirs. But yeah, like those are all the little ways. I carry it all with me all the time.
Yeah. It's important to keep it with you, to talk about it, to remember those memories and look through the photos and not let that be lost.
Totally.
Talk about now, the grief of divorce, because I feel like a lot of my audience hears about death a lot, but a lot of them also want to make a change after they've experienced a loss. Maybe it's quitting their job and starting a company. Maybe it's, traveling the world and just getting out of their comfort zone. Or maybe it's being unhappy in a relationship. So what prompted that change? And, how do you process grief from other losses outside of just death, even though we're not experts in that either?
Totally. We grieve all kinds of losses, is what you're saying. And I think you're spot on. We feel grief in any major life transition or any just big change overall. And an experience like a death can force you to reconsider every relationship you're in, platonic, romantic, whatever. Because losing a person to a death can make you question, like, well, what do I actually value? Who do I want to spend my time with now that my person is gone? Right? Like, who do I want to surround myself with? People you weren't close with before maybe become more important to you, and vice versa. Some people that you felt super close with, those relationships don't hit the same way. I think for me, at the age of 30 with 2 dead parents, in a way, it was very freeing for me because, and maybe it's also just getting older, like turning 30, period. And then also having 2 dead parents on top of that, I just had fewer fucks to give in like the best way. And I had this like really clear realization that no one was going to protect me anymore. No one was going to save me. I didn't have a parent who could swoop in and like help me if I was going through something really hard. It was just up to me. And I took a long, hard look at my marriage after my dad's death as we were in COVID lockdown together. That will force you to reevaluate all of your relationships when you are stuck with that person every single day, 24 hours a day. But I knew that relationship was not serving me and that I had been making a lot of excuses for it over the years. I think part of me wanted to prove that I was a good daughter and that I was stable and everything was great and my daddy didn't have to worry about me. And when he was gone, I think I became solely accountable to myself. And that is very freeing. I had no one else's like expectations to uphold. Also, therapy was incredibly helpful. And I'm very grateful I had a therapist before my dad died. And we could continue after. So yeah, it's so common that people end relationships after a death. And that was my case. I chose to end my marriage, and that was its own kind of death, right? It was the death of this future I had imagined with this person that was never actually going to happen. And I decided to make that final.
Mm-hmm. What, from a grief standpoint and a big decision standpoint, that therapy sounded like it was incredibly helpful.
Mm-hmm.
What did how do you process in financial terms, where like, hey, don't make any big decisions for 12
I know.
So how does somebody, if somebody's listening and they have a big decision that they're trying to make, they just got, a huge wake up call through the loss of someone, how would you recommend making that decision?
Yeah. Take your time. Wait. So, I mean, my marriage, our separation date was in June of 2021. My dad died in March of 2020. Mm-hmm. So I waited and evaluated and took a year and really thought about it. I did not make any other very big decisions at the same time. So, I mean, I was, as you heard in that talk, my job was hard. There was a lot of shit going on in our state government, and I stayed in it. I stayed in the same home that I was living in. Like, I wanted to keep some things very consistent in my life because everything else felt in complete upheaval. Also, the world was in upheaval. It was COVID. Nothing was as it should be, Yeah. But so I picked kind of one thing at a time. And I was like, okay, I think the fulcrum here is my marriage. I think this is the thing that needs to change. And so I guess my advice is, what's the expression? Don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. You ever heard that? That's an old, it's like from like
North Carolina thing. No,
this is like a 1600s of like, when you change the bathwater before there was plumbing. This maybe it is a North Carolina thing. I don't know. This, like, your whole life just already turned upside down. And sometimes we just want to be like, fuck it. Like, let me just escape and run away and change every single thing about my life. I would urge folks who are listening to find some things that you can anchor to. For me, it was also my dogs. Truly, my dogs were such a huge anchor. If I didn't have dogs to take care of and like be a good dog mom too, I wonder if I would have like moved to Italy or something and just said like, I hate everything and just leave. But I don't think that would have been great for me. I think having something consistent to hold on to as I was learning how to parent myself, as I was learning how to stay as balanced as I could, having things that were consistent was really, really helpful.
Yeah. As we transition to the money portion of the podcast,
I'm so excited.
Why are you excited?
Oh my gosh, because I love talking about the shit no one wants to talk about, Justin. Like, this is what we have to do, is we have to educate people on grief. That's its own beast that we're not supposed to talk about, but we're never supposed to talk about money. Especially like me as a millennial woman, like no one talked to me about, no one had talked to me about money when I was growing up. And then suddenly everyone's dead. And I'm like, oh shit, and I'm divorced. I'm like, oh my God, I need to learn how to manage all of these accounts. I need to learn how to do this. And no one had ever taught me before. So if we can talk about all those intersections, yay, I'm all for it.
Rebecca, what did your dad do for work, and how was money talked about in your home growing up, if at all?
My dad was a doctor at Duke. My mom ran the Duke Medical Center library. I don't think money was never like the motivating factor for anything for us. We were just a very service oriented family. Like, my dad would say things like, I don't want to misquote him, but like the general idea is there are much more lucrative roles you can take as a physician that are not endocrinology, which is working with people with diabetes. surgeons, for example, get paid by the procedures that they do, right? People who work in internal medicine and people who work in something like endocrinology, they just don't get paid in the same ways that other specialties do.
Yeah.
And so I think that message was really loud and clear, that we do things in our family to help people. And it is nice. Like, we have the financial means to do things that we love to do, like go to Duke basketball games. And my dad loved a nice car. He was a BMW driver. But I think I really understood that life wasn't about making money in our family. Life was about helping people. And we could buy things that brought us a little bit of joy. But that was not the be all end all for us at all. It just, and in terms of like, no one ever really like taught me about investing or savings or anything like that. I never had any formal financial like conversations or education.
Yeah. So when your dad did pass away, what were the immediate action steps that you had to take on? You know, mom's not.
Yeah.
What happened, and who else is in the picture?
It's kind of different. Like, for us, because my mom was gone already and my dad had remarried, my dad's wife, then widow, took on the executor role, took on that fiduciary role.
Mm-hmm.
When my mom had died and was sick, I mean, my dad had taken on all of those roles. When our grandmother died, after my dad died, that was the more complicated one from a financial responsibility standpoint, where our resources in our family come from our late grandfather on my mom's side. And we're very lucky. He worked incredibly hard. He was totally self-made. His name was Ralph. He was married to Beryl, my grandma. Ralph Goldman founded an aluminum packaging plant in Montreal in Canada. He did all kinds of stuff. He invested incredibly well. It was through that experience that my brother and I had this weird family tree that ended up with the two of us navigating what does inheritance look like when it should not have been happening in that order. It should have always been our mom. And that just wasn't the case. And then when it wasn't my dad's side of the family, so it wasn't his to navigate it all. So it was more of like, both of my parents had died. All of my grandparents died. And then my brother and I, as 30-somethings, were left to figure out, like, well, how do you financially plan when you suddenly have all of these resources that you should not have?
Mm-hmm.
It's been fascinating and a privilege. And it's very different from how I grew up. This was not a part of the conversation at all.
Yeah. Is that what you mean when you say financial privilege? Is that, it is a privilege to have your grandparents left you something, but it shouldn't have happened? It's like a privilege.
Yes. It's fucked up. Yes. Would I rather have every single person in my family be alive? Yes. Mm-hmm. And here I am with an opportunity to do a lot of good with the financial resources that I do have. So I'm going to.
Yeah.
But it's really weird. And what I also know is that my peers, let me say this actually. I mean, the death of a parent or the death of a spouse or the death of a partner, you are either going to be financially like devastated and impacted from that death, or you're going to inherit money from that death. Like money comes into play, whether quote unquote positively or negatively. And what a privilege that I didn't have to experience going through bankruptcy because of medical bills or other like debts that had to be paid when people I loved die.
Yeah.
That is a thing that happens to so many Americans every single day. And it is awful. When you're supposed to be grieving, when you should be grieving, and you are panicking about money because of the circumstances that you just happen to be in, it's not fair. So I am very aware of the privilege that I have and feel very passionate about using that financial privilege to help other people, whether that is philanthropically through donations that I give, or it is through my work with Grieve Leave.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how do you, like, what is the first thing you did? Was it, were you like, all right, I got to go meet with this person, or, okay.
I got a financial advice. I mean, I was literally learning from square one. I got a financial advisor who I knew through one of my closest friends in the whole world. It's her dad. But like, that's how I got connected. I started to learn about money for the first time, like in my late 20s, early 30s. Yeah. And when my Nana wasn't doing very well, this was even before my dad died, I started to learn about money because the writing was on the wall that my brother and I were about to navigate this whole thing. And I did not have the education to figure that out. Yeah. So yeah, financial advisor was step one of someone I could trust. I think the other thing that I want to say, and this is where like gender dynamics come in. I think before my divorce, I really deferred financial conversations to my ex-husband, and very much he was at the center of bill paying and how financial systems were set up. And we were figuring out how to navigate inheritance that would be coming in on my mom's side of the family from my grandparents. When my ex and I split up, that was another moment of me being like, oh my God, I have to learn everything. Yeah. I had to figure out how to pay our mortgage because I didn't know how those accounts were set up. I had to, you name it, every little thing was set up through him. So it's like, first financial education I had was getting a financial advisor before my grandmother died. Second huge reckoning that I had with finances was after my divorce. And it was literally learning, like, how do I set up a financial household for myself completely independently? How do I take charge of all of this? And that was hard. Mm-hmm. I had a lot to learn.
I would say do you have a right answer of how to set up a financial household, or at least it's getting somebody to help you, but it's all like, I think it's different for every person because you have to create, it's like going to the gym. You can't just, lift one weight and be okay. You have to create a plan. You have to create a structure, a routine around it. So it may be, for me, it's checking my expenses and my accounts once a month, the first Sunday night of every month. And I do that and I don't overdo it because I don't want to drive myself crazy. Sure. Or for me, even as an advisor, I have an advisor that I go to for advice because I want to make sure I'm not biased or missing any gaps.
It's like why therapists have therapists. Right.
Yeah. Well, that's a whole nother conversation. But yeah, how do you set up, let's say you're talking to someone who is now on their own, whether it's divorce or death.
Yeah.
How do you set up a financial house? How do you learn about this now? It's probably just get help.
I just feel like in so many ways, I feel like I'm still learning it myself, right? Yeah. Like I am still evaluating what systems work for me because I am only a few years in and I am still very much navigating like, okay, had never done taxes by myself until I got divorced. Like there were so many things that I was just learning, you know?
Yeah.
For me, having auto payments set up is key, like automating things, automating money going from one account to another so I don't get tempted to spend things is key. Advice I got long ago that has stuck with me is I treat my credit card like a debit card and that it is constantly paid down because I don't want to ever pay credit card interest if I can avoid it. Monitoring a budget on an annual basis and then coming back to that budget to see if it still makes sense monthly is important. All of those things help me, but I don't have the perfect system. Yeah. Right. And I think that is God, I have so many things that I want to tell you about. So I feel like the older that I get, the more that I realize no one has everything figured out perfectly. And we are all constantly reevaluating what works well for us. So at the beginning of 2024, I was using spreadsheets in one way to track my finances. And in 2025, I was using different spreadsheets, basically, and having different kinds of meetings with my financial advisor, different cadences of those meetings to make this work better for me. And I think for so long, I was so worried that I hadn't figured out the perfect way for me to feel on top of everything. And at the end of the day, like there is no perfect system. There is no like magic wand you can wave so that your finances are immediately easier, or sorry, that they're immediately like perfect. I think there are systems that can make things easier to navigate, but it's like, stop looking for perfection and just keep iterating on systems that feel good to you.
Yeah. I think it's a system, so it should be an evolving process and an evolution.
Yeah.
And you're right. The perfect plan doesn't exist. If you can tell me exactly when you're going to retire, exactly when you're going to die, the tax bracket in that year, like boom, 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 what the market's going to return.
You know what else? Here's the other thing is being a woman of childbearing age, having gone through a divorce and then was in a relationship where I totally thought that he and I were going to get married. So this was a couple of years after my divorce. I was in a very wonderful relationship. We had moved in together. And then that ended kind of suddenly for many reasons. And that threw off my financial plan. Like I wrote a blog post earlier this year about what it was like. God, it was so sad. I set up an estate plan. I wrote a will for the first time because that boyfriend and I had moved in together. And I was like, oh my God, look at me. I am an adult. I have a will. I have a financial plan. Yay, me. And then he and I broke up literally a month after that. And I had to literally call the estate attorney and be like, girl, guess what happened? and to go back there and rewrite the will to take him out as my, person who would be my power of attorney or who would get the condo or whatever it was. And like these things will happen in your life. Shit's going to happen that is going to change your financial plans all the time. I hope that I have kids. That would be wonderful. That's going to be expensive. If that happens, that will change my financial plans. And all of these things that I'm talking through, like they all come with grief of their own. There's something I didn't say out loud that I also think I should say out loud about money and grief.
Do it. You
were asking like at the very beginning, like what was one of the first things that I had to think about or that I was doing when my dad died. Like one of the only ways I felt like I could cope with my dad's death was shopping. Truly, I truly mean that. I was stuck in lockdown and I was like, my dad's fucking dead. Everything sucks. I'm going to buy this Gucci bag that is very much on sale from Gilt.com, GILT, 10 out of 10. Wish they would sponsor me. I love them so much. Great sample sale website. I have purses now. I'm thinking of one pair of shoes too, that I'm like, oh, those were my pandemic dead dad purchases. But it was like spending the money was the only thing that like gave me a temporary dopamine rush of being like, oh, okay, great. Something like, a package is here, Yeah. And that happens for so many people. So many people go into these like scary shopping holes or gambling holes or other kind of spending habits after they lose a loved one. And you can lose everything, absolutely everything, if you are not cautious when it comes to financial planning. Grief fucks you up. And I think about that all the time. I still love to shop. I get that from my mom. But post dad's death, I was trying to fill a void that could not be filled with Gucci bags. I bought a pogo stick at one point, Justin. I was a fucking idiot. Pogo stick. I was like, oh, let me go jump away my pain and like live through, I don't know, redo my childhood. It was bad.
But from an inheritance standpoint, I think it's really hard you go through this phase of whose money is this? And is this my money? Is this money that like, I even deserve or earned? And do I just want it to go away? Well, how do I get it to go away? I can make obscene investments, or I can,
give it all away. Right.
Yeah. And then that stuff still stays with you. That Gucci bag is still in your room. So if you buy something and you still feel guilt around that, not GILT, GUILT.
It is a funny website name for that. No, what you're talking about is so real, though. Sorry, you were going to say something.
Well, especially, the fact that you made like sort of guilty purchases with guilt.
Totally. The Gucci purse is really cute. It's red. Anyway.
No, not that.
Okay, that one's fine. The pogo stick was dumb. Man, questions about inheritance are real. And I think my peers, I am the first of my peers in a financial situation like this to inherit money in this timeline because everyone died so young. There are stats, I'm sure you know them better than I do, about, huge wealth transfers that are going to happen over the next few decades as boomers die. And many boomers have accrued a significant amount of wealth that they're going to pass on to their millennial kids. And many of my peers are going to be in this weird privileged situation of saying, what do I do with this? Has anyone prepared me to navigate how I make decisions about how I use this money? Is there a plan already set up for me about how I can use this money? And some people will make those plans for you and in building trusts out for you or whatever it is. But I think because of the household that I grew up in and because of my values of being very focused around service, my number one goal, that's not right. My number one
motivator.
Yeah, or value that I approached inheriting money with was I want to maximize this for philanthropic purposes. I want to maximize the resources that I have to do the most good with it that I can over the course of my life. And so that looks to me like mathing out, well, I could make a large donation today and have a financial impact and wealth gone, and I can move on with my life. That is one option, and there's nothing wrong with that and someone choosing that. That is not what I am choosing today. I am choosing to keep growing the wealth that I have to continue to do good over the course of my life.
Yeah.
The other piece of that, though, is then balancing that I also believe that I deserve some comfort and joy in my life, and that I'm not a bad person for choosing to spend financial resources that I have on luxuries and on things that bring me the tiniest bits of joy when I know firsthand that all the money in the world couldn't have kept my dad alive,
Mm-hmm.
right? Didn't matter. He was gone. All the money in the world could not have saved my mom. So I think I just have this view of, well, yeah, I know the Gucci bags are fucking stupid. And if it's the tiniest bit of joy I can get in a day, okay. I get to live in a beautiful home. That is a privilege. I get to host events for organizations that I love in that beautiful home.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I think about the resources
Yeah.
that I have.
How can you use the resources to give back to yourself, to give back, to put yourself in an environment that could, give back even more to this society and the service, because service sounds like it's just such a strong value. And speaking of
Totally.
those values, it sounds like the values were, either verbally or subconsciously passed down from your grandparents, from your mom and your dad to you. Very values oriented person. And we met through experience camp. So I know that
Mm-hmm.
firsthand. What do you wish you knew or talked about money before being sort of thrusted into this financial responsibility?
Oh my God, that you're not like an asshole. You're not a bad person for talking about money.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like there is so much um the ways that we have this taboo feeling around talking about grief are the same ways that we have this taboo-ness about talking about money. And so it leaves us feeling very unprepared when we are in situations where we need to make financial decisions. And
Yeah.
it just doesn't have to be that way. I am now I am the person that my friends go to, particularly my female friends go to when they have questions about money, because they know that I know things now. And I just want everyone to know, like, you're not alone. You're not stupid. I promise you. You're not hopeless. You're not undisciplined, right? Like, we just haven't taught these skills to people.
Right.
I follow this one woman on Instagram whom I love. I think her handle is the Financial Feminist.
Yeah.
I think that's right. Or her first 100K. I can't remember what her actual handle is, but she is cool as hell. And she unapologetically, like, her whole goal with her content is to teach women about money so that we can exercise our power more.
Mm-hmm.
When we keep people in the dark about money, we are keeping them from having agency over their own lives. And it does not have to be that way. I wish I knew that. I wish I had known that younger. I wish I had known. I wish I had learned the systems to like save this amount, spend this amount.
Right.
But no one taught me that.
Yeah. Framing, like, if somebody is in your same shoes and they want to be empowered, they want to talk more about money, what questions did you not get to ask that you would have wanted to your grandma, to your dad, to your mom, that would have helped you navigate both grief, life, and money a little bit better?
I feel like, I mean, my grandfather did not. I feel fine being frank about this, because I'm a girl. My grandfather had no interest in teaching me financial anything, and he did not empower my grandmother financially either to be able to have agency over her own life. And I think that was very generational. And
Yeah.
I would have now understanding what I do about investments, about savings, about taking risk, right? I would love to pick his brain, pick my grandfather's brain, where he's still alive, about how he approached his investments. I think it would be fascinating to talk with him through that. But that was never on the table as something that was appropriate for us to talk about at all. And that is a shame.
Mm-hmm.
I think with my dad, his dad was an accountant, fun fact. I think my dad's approach to money maybe is kind of similar to mine now. And I think I really learned a lot about my values about money from him. I think my dad struggled a lot. I mean, he watched his wife die over the course of 8 years while he raised two young children. And I think he was tired after that. I think it devastated him in many ways financially, of like completely changing their financial picture of what they thought was going to be true as a 2-income household to then just not to a 1-income household. Obviously, we were not struggling. I went to private school my entire life. Like everything was a-okay, but it was a different life. I think I think he had to make different choices than he would have. But I saw my dad like choose to go out to nice dinners and invest in Duke basketball and football tickets and use money for the little things that you can spend money on to just make you a little bit happy. And I think I have really gotten that mindset from him. I wish that we had built habits together. Like I wish we had talked more about, I don't know, like what it looked like to save over time. I don't think I said this out loud at any point. I always worked through middle school and high school and college for my own spending money. I was babysat. That was the rule in our household. I was very lucky to have college paid for by my dad and scholarships, and my phone bill, things like that were covered by him until I graduated. But if I wanted to like go out and have a beer, that was money that I earned for myself. And I'm very glad that that was a status quo in our household, is he was not giving any spending money at all. That was earned by me. And so I am glad that was a value that we got.
Yeah. The needs were sort of taken care of until you could self-support, but the wants were...
That was all me.
Yeah. From a planning standpoint, after loss, is there anything that you wish would have been done differently?
I mean, I don't think my grandfather could have done a lot more transparent planning with me and my brother after he lost my mom. And my mom had a sister who also died young. So there were plenty of opportunities where we could have had those conversations, and we could have had just a much more like transparent, loving conversation around money. And that just didn't happen. And that creates a lot of stress in families when you're not planning together.
Mm-hmm.
There was that just wasn't something that happened. So, God, I forgot the question because I got so like PTSD'd around like how hard it's been. And I don't mean that in like an annoying way of like boo-hoo, right? I'm so damn privileged and I'm so lucky. And it just, if we talked about and planned for transfers of wealth in families, if men of the boomer generation actually confront their own mortality and have conversations with their kids and grandkids that say, I recognize I'm going to die. Let's talk about what money we have in our family and what I want to go where and how we can do this together. You will save so much stress for your children, for your grandchildren, so that they can actually focus on, I don't know, their feelings, grief, how hard it's going to be when they die. Because this financial logistical stress is something that can be confronted. We can confront it. It just, you gotta, I don't know, there's so much hubris in the boomer men generation that they're like, nah, I don't want to worry about that. It'll be fine.
And like you said, grief is hard enough. And put this on top of it. Now it's a burden and it's a responsibility. And I wasn't prepared for this. And now I have to, figure things out with my new spouse or husband or whatever to be like, all right, like this is our money, but this chunk isn't your money because this is their money. And what?
That is like so complicated, that dynamic there of one spouse inheriting money and the other not, and
Mm-hmm.
what their relationship is to that inherited money. I don't want to speak to more specifics personally. I'll just say that that is something I'm familiar with, and seeing that dynamic play out. It's hard.
Yeah. So we talked about some of the good advice that you got on money, which was automate your savings, treat your credit
So
card,
many things. Right, right.
the budget. Is there any really bad advice that you received that was like, oh, I learned this the hard way. I made a mistake and followed this advice, or, yeah, I'm not going to do that.
I don't think it was that I got bad advice. It was that there was no advice at all, like just silence. And I think silence around financial planning is just as dangerous, because if you don't have anything to anchor your decisions to, it's really hard. Okay, this isn't like advice that I got, but it's just the pressures that come with wanting to do good philanthropically. People are going to ask you for help, as they should. And you are going to want to help people. You have to budget, and you have to set values for yourself that you will use to make decisions around how you choose to give and how you don't. And I think maybe it's the like people pleaser in me that wants to be able to help everybody all the time. If I do that, I won't be able to help people in the long run. So I think that's just like advice that I have, is set clear guiding principles for yourself as you think about philanthropic spending, just like you think about personal spending for yourself. Budget in your own ways that make sense from a values-based perspective for philanthropy.
Yeah. And helping people you care about, helping, you may have one relative that did really well and gave you a lot of money, and another relative who may be in need. Do you feel are you mathematically and emotionally in a position to help and support that other relative that may now be relying on you?
And I think my personal my family's so tiny. I mean, I can't relate to that as much as I know other people can around the realities of needing to support. I don't have kids, right? Like, not yet. Hopefully, maybe at some point I will. My boyfriend is probably listening to this at some point. He knows.
Well, you have two dogs, so.
And my boyfriend has the third. And so 3 senior dogs is like too many dogs for also having children. So someone's gonna have to give those dogs. I love them with all of my heart. And I also know they will not live forever. They're expensive too. God, talk about grief and money. Okay, I'll tell you this, Justin. I did not financially plan for having 2 dogs by myself, right? Like, I opted into those dogs when I was married. Mm-hmm. And then to end up with the financial burden of dogs is significant as they get older. If you want to keep them alive and they have as many health problems as my dogs do, these are things you don't like. Things are going to change in your life as you get older. So whatever plans you make, just cross them out.
Cross them out. It's a financial plan. It's meant to change. How about that?
Exactly.
You said something last time we spoke. It was the fact that, because your parents and your grandparents passed away, you're now in this category. You're now at a seat. You have a seat at this table of, being in a boardroom or, being on a board or whatever it might be. What's that like? Is it, how do you navigate that?
I love it. What an immense responsibility.
Give us an example of the things that you're involved in.
Yeah.
And, how it felt like being in that room.
I sit on multiple nonprofit boards. I do not think that is, and I know that is not exclusively because of my capacity to give philanthropically to those organizations. I know it doesn't hurt, but that is not the only reason why I sit on those boards at all. I think what's become really interesting for me is I regularly talk to nonprofits, political orgs, religious orgs, about how to approach fundraising from millennials and Gen Zs, because I bring this perspective now of like what it feels like to be solicited for donations regularly. And I spend a lot of time thinking about what works communication wise. And so I advise regularly on that. That's fun. I really like helping organizations think about how they can get more financial resources from people, how they can motivate folks to donate. That is a value add that I really am glad to have. But I think in there are spaces that I get to sit in because of philanthropic giving that I'm able to do, where I am often the youngest person or one of the younger people present. And there have been so many times where someone just assumes I'm on staff, or someone assumes all the time. How are you connected to the event? Or, are you working today? Or do you work for the campaign, or whatever it is? I'm like, nope. I am a donor just like you. Those conversations I could let them really frustrate me if I want, but every time I feel more empowered, because I really want to flip the script on what people expect someone looks like who is able to use, who's able to be empowered with the privilege that I have. Mm-hmm. I think I could have a lot of shame about those financial resources. And I think for a little while I did. Questions of whether I deserved it, going back to something you mentioned earlier, is it fair that I have this? I don't think it's fair, and I have it. So here I am, and I can let that eat me alive, or I can play the cards that I've been dealt and do the best that I can. So that shame, I think, kept me from holding my own in those spaces for a little while. And I feel better now. Also, again, that comes with getting older. I give fewer fucks now. And I'm like, okay, it's fine. I'm also, because I'm getting older, I'm not always going to be the youngest person in those spaces anymore. And that hurts.
Everybody else is just getting younger. So tell us about Grieve Leave and your podcast as well.
Yeah. Grieve Leave is a global organization that supports people who are grieving all kinds of losses, whether those are death or non-death related losses. We support people in workplaces on how to create more grief-informed environments so that people who are grieving, when they come back to work, they don't quit after because your workplace doesn't know how to support them. Mm-hmm. I love working with workplaces large and small on how to create better policies, how to talk to each other better about grief. I have a podcast called Griefed Up that is so fun. You should definitely tune in if you like this chaotic vibe. That is the vibe of Griefed Up. And we are talking about all forms of loss. Again, death, non-death, ranging from talking to former professional athletes in the NBA about their experiences with grief to artists who paint people's grief to, you name it. Mm-hmm. And we're very active on social media. You can follow us at Grieve Leave on TikTok, on Instagram. Instagram's our main platform. And I think I'll also just mention we do a lot of policy advocacy. I want to see our systems better support people who are grieving, whether that is through paid flexible leave, like bereavement leave, whether that is through mandatory education around things like power of attorney, or even financial planning, making people write a will if you want to get insured at your company for something, for example. Mm-hmm. Those are policies we can set that intersect with grief. So we do a lot of advocacy in that space. So I love our work with Grieve Leave, and our DMs are always open. We're very easy to find.
Amazing. Yeah, I love that. And I want to make sure that our financial advisors and our financial planners and our wealth managers and our investment advisors, or whatever we're calling ourselves, are focusing on it as well, and
Mm-hmm.
being able to help guide people through the process of grief and money best of their abilities. So our work intersects and intertwines in a lot of ways.
Totally. 100%.
As we end the podcast here, two questions. So one is, are there any lessons that you want to leave our audience with? Lessons about your approach to life, planning, money, conversations, grief and loss that you want to leave them?
God, I have so many things. Okay, hold on. Let me be pithy here. Money makes grief complicated, and grief makes money complicated. And I think that the more we talk about both, we can lighten the load just a little bit more on the emotional impacts of both of those things. But that requires us to be really brave and to talk about those things. It is not impolite to talk about grief or money, even though that's what we have been taught in our country. Talk about the things you feel like you're not supposed to talk about. It will help you in the long run. I think that is the biggest piece of advice that I can give. That's a big lesson too. Yeah.
I love that. Talk about the things that you're not supposed to be talking about, the taboo topics that we talk about here on the Currency of Grief.
Love it.
Let's say there's a young girl, 31 years old, lost both of her parents.
I hope not, but I love you if you're out there.
Went through divorce. Are there any grief mantras or words of wisdom that you'd like to share with that person?
You have absolutely no idea what you're capable of, because you only learn that as you lose people in your life. The first time I ever knew I could live without my parents was when I was doing it. First time I ever knew that I could manage my own finances was when I was doing it. You have absolutely no idea how powerful you are and how capable you are.
I'm motivated.
Good. I'm glad.
Rebecca Feinglos, it was an absolute pleasure to have you on the Currency of Grief.
Thanks, Justin. Thank you so much for having me, and love talking about the taboo things with you. I'll come back anytime.
We're here. Podcast listeners, podcast family, thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of the Currency of Grief. Don't forget, it's a great day to have a great day, so go have a great day. We'll see you next time. Thank you for joining me on this episode of the Currency of Grief podcast. My hope is that today's conversation brought you clarity, comfort, and even a spark to start those difficult but necessary conversations in your own life. If you found this episode helpful, it would mean the world to me if you would share it with one other person who you feel this podcast could impact. And please, take a moment to leave us a 5-star review. Your review will help us reach more people who need this resource. Remember, the best time to talk about death and money was yesterday. The second best time is now. Until next time, I'm Justin Weidenfeld, your Grief Financial Officer, and this has been the Currency of Grief podcast.